the world, he made some things happen. Gravity, for instance, does it still work?
Yeah.
Gravity works, right? He put into effect cause and effect. How many of you know what that is? Well, if I talk to you in Christianese, it boils down to sowing and reaping. That's what cause and effect is. That's what cause and effect is. Now, he did not put that into the Bible, into our lives to punish us. He put it there so that we would recognize that this is just plain what's going to happen. Right? There are just some things that if we do certain things are going to happen. Almost guaranteed. Right? Like sowing and reaping. Dan just talked about it. Prosperity comes when we do what God says, right? But there's some other things that happen in real life all the time. When you smoke, almost guaranteed you're going to get a smoker's cough or hack. Right? I smoked for years, I know exactly what ends up happening. Down the road, what ends up happening many times is cancer, lung cancer, right? Cause and effect. Cause and effect. We do it to ourselves. We eat more than we should. What happens? We get fat. Well-rounded. I have to say it was well-rounded. Down the road, after we gain all the weight, comes all kinds of health issues that are related to being overweight. Right? We all know that. Cause and effect. We sowed into the wrong areas and we reap. What happens when we overspend? You can almost be guaranteed creditors are going to be calling, right? And what happens after the creditors call and you can't pay your bills? You lose stuff, right? Cause and effect. Cause and effect. That is, God didn't put it there to punish us, but he put it in there. You're going to sow what you're going to reap so that we would know. Because this is what naturally ends up happening. Now, on the other hand, when we eat right and we exercise regularly, what ends up happening? We show signs very often of less flus, less winter colds, right? One of the first signs that we start noticing. All of a sudden, we end up and we are fit. Fit. Eating right and exercising doesn't guarantee you your health, but it will cause you to live in a more fit way. Right? That is just what ends up happening. Now, when I budget, what ends up happening? When I budget properly, when I take care of my finances, I end up being able to pay my bills, right? I can save, and I can end up putting into a storehouse or start a savings account. That's what happens. Cause and effect. Sowing and reaping. That's what ends up happening. Kids, when you do your work in school, you get most of it done. You go home and you do your homework, then you study and you do well on your tests, right? What happens when you don't do that? Oops. Oops. Parents, I'm here to tell you today, stop interfering with the natural way with the cause and effect law. Stop interfering. Your children need to experience. They need to experience what ends up happening when they do certain things. When we interfere, and I'm a mom, I'm a they need to hurt. They need to understand at an early age that sin is going to cause pain. If you don't allow him to experience the pain, guess what happens? All kinds of things.
Bigger pain.
Nothing good. You see, kids need to learn when they're little. You know when the best time, I do monkey trails, okay? Rabbit trails. You know when the best time to train your little one? When they're in the high chair and they throw something on the floor. You know what mom wants to do? Moms are guilty of this most times. They pick it up and put it back on the high chair. And then baby thinks, well, this is fun. And mom comes and picks it up and puts it back. And baby says, well, this is a neat game. I can get mom to pick up stuff for me. So she throws it on the floor and waits. And mom comes in, puts it back on the high chair. And this goes to be a week-long, month-long game. Because I can get forever mom to pick up stuff for me. Now what would happen if that child learned the first time they threw it down on the floor that it was forever out of reach? See, the first time your child overspends on his allowance, that's when it should stop. That's when it should stop. Don't bail them out. Don't bail them out. Because what ends up happening is you're going to be bailing them out forever. You're going to raise a codependent. You see, the Bible said you're going to reap what you sow. How is it that dad has to cut the check every time the son overspends? What's wrong with the picture? Who's actually hurting there? See, the child isn't learning. And then usually it's mom. Sorry, moms, but that's the fact. Usually what ends up happening is, well, I scolded him. I told him that this was never going to happen again. As you cut him a check. As you cut him a check. Come on. Let him suffer. And I know that's a horrible thing to think. But it's the best thing in the world that you're going to ever do for your child. It's the best thing that you're going to ever do for them. Let them go without. Let them suffer the natural consequences that God put into the plan. He put it there for a reason. You see, I only had to bump my knees a few times, and then I learned to stay up on the bike. You know that? If my dad would probably still be pushing me behind, I would have never learned to walk. He let go and he let me get bumped. And I learned very quickly, you see, that this hard pavement will teach you lots. Real quick. There's nothing that's going to teach you what hot means like a blister on your finger. And sometimes they just have to experience. A child has absolutely no way of knowing what hot means until he touches hot. Do you know that? He has absolutely nothing to compare it to. I would sooner have them experience hot in my presence